This happened a few months ago. I'm 35, and I run almost every evening. I moved to this suburban neighborhood for a break from city life. The lawns are well kept, and the streets are quiet. I thought it would be a good place to clear my mind after a tough job change. But what happened still haunts me. One evening, I laced up my running shoes and stepped outside. The sun was setting, casting long shadows. I began my usual route down the tree-lined street. It felt normal, like any other day. But then, I noticed a figure in a yard that usually seemed empty. I thought it was just a neighbor. The person stood still, watching me. A chill crept up my spine as I ran past. I turned my head slightly, but the figure didn't move. In the weeks that followed, I saw that figure more often. It was always the same. In the same spot. Just standing there. Each time, my heart raced a little more. I tried to convince myself it was nothing. Maybe it was someone taking a break? Yet, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. And then, on a Wednesday evening, I heard laughter. The sound came from somewhere nearby, but the streets were empty. I paused, straining my ears, but the laughter faded before I found out where it came from. That weekend, I decided to take a different route. Maybe I could avoid the figure. I jogged past a small park and suddenly tripped over something. It was a child's toy, a plastic dinosaur. I picked it up, confused. I didn't see any kids around. I tossed the toy back into the grass and kept running, but now I felt hair stand up on the back of my neck. Every night, I would see the figure. Every night, I heard the laughter. My run started feeling like a chore. I thought I was losing my mind. Was it the stress of moving, or was there really something off about this place? One evening, with my heart pounding, I finally slowed down and asked the figure, "Are you okay?" There was no answer. I felt cold. I didn't want to keep running, but I had to. On one final run, I noticed the toys again. This time, a small pile caught my eye. I hesitated. The laughter echoed loudly now, filling the empty streets. The figure still stood there, still watching me. A knot formed in my stomach. As I ran past, I heard a voice say, "Hey." I turned around quickly. No one was behind me. The laughter continued, but it felt different. It felt like it was coming from the shadows. I ran faster, and the laughter turned into a distant echo, fading into the night. After that evening, I never ran in that neighborhood again. I don't know what I saw or heard. Maybe I'll never know. I still remember the figure and the laughter. They linger in my mind, reminding me to trust my instincts. I couldn't shake off the unease that settled in me after I stopped running. The evenings felt longer without the routine that comforted me. I started walking instead, hoping the slower pace would help clear my mind. One evening, as I strolled through the neighborhood, I caught sight of the same empty yard where I had seen the figure. I felt a strong pull to look over. I paused, heart racing. The yard was barren aside from the grass. No figure this time, just a chilling emptiness. I felt relieved but also disappointed. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe I could talk to whoever lived there. I had to know what was happening. But as I turned to leave, a flicker of movement caught my eye. There, half hidden behind the tree trunk, was a flash of something white. I squinted and stepped closer. It was a small doll, its face cracked and unkempt, its eyes staring blankly at me. I picked it up, feeling an odd mix of sadness and dread. It felt wrong to hold it. As I looked around, I fought the urge to drop it and run. I placed it back on the ground and turned to leave, but before I could take a step, I heard that laughter again, a softer, yet somehow more sinister sound. What is wrong with this place? I whispered to myself. I picked up my pace, walking towards home, but the laughter echoed in my mind. I turned a corner and nearly jumped when I spotted a group of kids playing at the park. They were laughing and running, carefree. My heart relaxed a bit, but something felt off. Their laughter had a hollow sound, almost like it belonged to someone else. I felt as if I was an outsider watching a scene unfold in a strange world. The laughter suddenly stopped. They all turned to me, their eyes wide. The smiles vanished, replaced by expressions I couldn't quite read. I felt exposed under their gaze. "Hey, do you know where she is?" one of the kids called out. My stomach dropped. "Who?" I asked, though I felt I knew the answer. "The girl in the yard." Another child chimed in eagerly. "She wants to play." Every instinct in me told me to get out of there. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. "I don't know what you're talking about," I replied, backing away slowly. Their expressions morphed from curiosity to something darker. The laughter returned, but this time it didn't sound friendly. It echoed through the park, bouncing off the trees in a menacing way. I turned and walked briskly, not daring to look back at the children. I rushed home, each step feeling heavy. When I finally got inside, I locked the door tightly behind me. I leaned against it, breathing hard. My body was afraid. That's when I caught a glimpse of movement outside my window. My heart raced again as I hurried to pull the curtain aside, peeking through. There was nothing there, just the darkening street. But I could have sworn I felt someone watching me still. I stumbled back, my mind reeling. What did the kids mean? Who was the girl in the yard? I thought of the toys, the laughter, and now the doll. They had an unsettling significance I couldn't ignore. Suddenly, I heard a soft knock on my door. I froze. It was late, and I was alone. My heart raced as fear wrapped around me like a tight coil. I took a breath, eyeing the door. Maybe it was a neighbor? Maybe they knew something? As I approached, I wondered if I was really ready for whatever waited on the other side. I reached for the door, my hand hovering over the knob. The knock came again, softer this time, almost timid. I hesitated. Should I open it? "Who is it?" I called, trying to keep my voice steady. No response. Just silence. My heart raced again at the unease settling back in. I knew I shouldn't open the door. I should ignore it, but curiosity pulled at me like a magnet. I took a deep breath and twisted the knob. The door creaked open slowly. No one stood there. Just empty air. I peered out into the dimly lit hallway of my home. Maybe I was imagining things. I leaned out, looking both ways. That's when I noticed something on the doormat. I knelt down and picked up a small piece of paper, crumpled and stained. As I smoothed it out, my breath hitched. It was a drawing, a childish depiction of a girl with long hair and blank eyes, standing beside a dilapidated dollhouse. The same dollhouse I had seen outside earlier by the yard. Across the bottom, written in shaky letters, were the words, "Don't let her in." My skin prickled as I stared at it. Who was this girl? What did this mean? I glanced at the yard, the shadows stretching longer down the block. Suddenly, I felt a rush of wind blast against my face, sending a chill crawling along my spine. It felt like a warning. I quickly got to my feet and closed the door, locking it tightly. There had to be an explanation for all of this, but my thoughts were clouded with fear. Maybe I should call someone. I fumbled for my phone, but then the lights flickered. I froze, my eyes darting to the window. Alone in the darkness, I felt as if I were the only one left in the world. A shadow moved outside my home, just at the edge of my vision. I swallowed hard. I took a chance and lifted the curtain slightly to peer out. In the distance near the tree in the yard stood a figure. A girl? I couldn't tell. The streetlight barely illuminated her features, but her head tilted at an odd angle, almost as if she were examining me. "Who are you?" I whispered, though I knew she couldn't hear me. My heart raced, pounding in my ears as I backed away slowly. I could feel her gaze on me, heavy and demanding. Then, without warning, the laughter burst out again, loud and wild, echoing through the stillness of the night. It sent a jolt through me, bringing every muscle in my body to life. I stumbled away from the window. This was too much. The fear flooded back stronger than before. I backed up, hands trembling, and it was then that I heard another knock, this time on my back door. I spun around, my heart pounding furiously in my chest. Who was trying to get inside? I needed to make a choice: stay and see what happened, or run and fend off my own curiosity. The decision felt like life or death. I gripped my phone tightly, preparing for whatever would come next. My instinct screamed for me to flee, but I found myself rooted in place, curiosity warring with fear. The knock on the back door came again, more insistent this time. My heart pounded louder than I ever thought possible. Someone was definitely trying to get in. I forced myself to move, adrenaline pulsing through my veins. I needed to take action. Without thinking, I whispered to myself, "Just check." I tiptoed toward the back of the house, careful not to make any noise. I could feel the hairs on my neck standing up. As I neared the door, I hesitated. Did I really want to see who was there? I thought about the note, the drawing, and the figure outside. But something inside me yearned to know. I took a deep breath and peered through the peephole. My stomach dropped. It was that girl. The same one who had been watching me outside. She stood there, her long hair cascading around her thin shoulders. Her head was still tilted, and it seemed like she was staring right at the door, as if she could see me. Instinct kicked in again, and I stumbled back, tripping over a table leg. I held my breath, my face burning with embarrassment and fear. I glanced back to the peephole, but she hadn't moved. Panic twisted my gut. What did she want? Why was she here? Then I remembered the dollhouse. I needed to know more. I rushed back to the living room, pulling open the curtain just enough to see the yard again. The girl was gone, blending back into the shadows like she had never been there. A wave of confusion washed over me. I snatched my phone from the table, aiming to call anyone, but my hands shook so violently I almost dropped it. No signal. My heart sank as I realized how isolated I felt. That was when I heard it again. The laughter echoed through the darkness, but it was closer this time, more sinister. I felt the urge to scream, but I forced it down and moved quietly toward the back door again. Suddenly, the lights flickered once more, and the entire house was swallowed in darkness. Panic clawed at me as I fumbled for the wall to find a light switch. When the lights came back on, everything was still. But my gaze snagged on something at the far end of the hallway: the dollhouse. I hadn't even noticed it was back inside. How had it gotten there? My heart raced as I stepped forward. The dust clung thick around it, as if it had been absent for ages. And there, in the window of the dollhouse, was a shadowy figure resembling the girl. I squinted, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. That's when I realized the figure inside was holding a small piece of paper. My breath caught as dread tightened around my chest. What did it say? Just then, there was a loud crash outside, and I gasped, freezing in place. I rushed to the window, peering out. The girl stood by the tree again, but she wasn't alone. Shadows shifted around her, dark figures that sent terror coursing through me. I knew I had to make a choice. Stay, and face whatever was happening, or run while I still could. I hesitated, my mind racing. This was bigger than I had imagined. I felt the ground shake beneath me as another loud noise erupted in the darkness. Whatever was happening was closing in, and I suddenly felt the surge of urgency that drove me to a decision. I had to get to the back door before it was too late. I opened the back door, the sudden cool air hitting my face. I stepped outside, driven by a mix of fear and determination. The yard was bathed in moonlight, casting eerie shadows across everything. I squinted into the darkness, looking for any sign of the girl or those sinister figures. Nothing. My eyes darted to the tree where she had stood. I had to check. My heart urged me to find her. I started to walk towards it, each step feeling heavier than the last. Then I paused. A rustling sound came from the bushes nearby. It sent a chill down my spine. "Hello?" My voice trembled. No answer. Though I wanted to turn back, curiosity pulled me in. I picked up my pace until I reached the tree. My heart raced when I noticed the ground underneath had been disturbed, as if something had recently been dug up. And then I saw it. A small, shiny object glistening in the grass. I leaned down, my fingers trembling as I picked it up. It was a key. Where had it come from? Who had left it there? That wasn't the kind of thing you just found at your backyard. My mind raced with possibilities, and the laughter echoed again, louder this time. I stumbled back, fear clawing at me. When I noticed the dollhouse again, illuminated faintly through the back door. My instincts screamed at me, warning me. I shouldn't go back in. But I had to see what the girl wanted. Something deep inside urged me to find out why she was connected to the dollhouse. With quick strides, I headed back inside, clutching the key tightly. My eyes immediately fixed on the dollhouse. I approached it slowly, half expecting something to jump out at me. The small window still showed the shadowy figure, but now it seemed to beckon me closer. As I reached out, I could feel the chill crawling up my arm. I realized the figure was pointing at the little door of the dollhouse, where something sat just inside. Holding my breath, I opened it. A tiny piece of paper rested within, identical to the one the girl had held outside. As I unfolded it, the familiar, childish handwriting painted a picture in my mind. It read, "Find me where the light fades." My heart raced. What did it mean? Before I could ponder it further, a loud thud resonated from upstairs like footsteps shuffling across the floor. Goosebumps prickled my skin. Someone or something was in the house with me. I looked back at the dollhouse as a rush of dread washed over me. I had to decide. Investigate the noise upstairs or follow the cryptic message about the fading light. My gut twisted at the thought of what lay ahead. The urgency clawed at me. I had to act fast. Just then, the laughter echoed again, clearer, closer. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for whatever came next. I stood frozen, the note crumpled in my hand. The laughter faded into the background, but the eerie thud upstairs pulsed in my ears. I knew I couldn't wait any longer. Though my heart raced, curiosity overpowered my fear. I had to know what was up there. I moved cautiously towards the staircase, the wooden steps creaking under my weight. Each step felt like a gamble, an invitation to whatever lurked above. The air grew thicker, each inch closer to the upper floor, pulling me deeper into uncertainty. When I reached the landing, the hallway stretched out before me, dark and silent. The only source of light filtered through the small window at the end. I strained to hear any sound, but only the quiet of the house greeted me. That heavy thud hung in the air, though, like a ghost waiting to reveal itself. I turned left, moving towards the closed door at the end of the hall. My breath hitched as I reached out to touch the doorknob. It felt cold in my palm, a jolt that intensified my nerves. I hesitated, wondering if I was making a huge mistake. What if there was someone in there? Or something else? But I couldn't turn back. I twisted the knob and pushed the door open. It creaked loudly in the stillness, and I went a little pale at the sound. The room was shrouded in darkness, but quickly I spotted a figure in the corner, hunched over something. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice simmering with unsteady resolve. The figure didn't turn, but a low whisper drifted through the air, a soft sound that felt almost like a warning. Light fades, the words echoed in my mind, the message from the girl. I strained desperately to see, slowly stepping deeper into the room. I flicked on the light switch, flooding the space with brightness. What I found left me breathless. The walls were covered in drawings, chaotic images of the girl, the dollhouse, and dark silhouettes. Each picture was filled with a mix of fear and innocence, showcasing scenes of laughter overlaid with dread. I stepped closer to get a better look, my heart pounding as I recognized the girl's face over and over again. Then, something shifted in my peripheral vision. It was a shadow darting across the room. My blood ran cold as I turned to follow it, but nothing was there. Just the faint sound of muffled laughter, so close it nearly felt real. Panicking, I backed away, my eyes darting around for any sign of movement. That's when I noticed a small door behind the girl's drawings, barely a crack forming at its edge. I stumbled back, but the curiosity clawed at me again. There had to be something more. Before I could think twice, I approached that door, heart hammering. I pulled it open, and darkness enveloped me. The moment I stepped inside, I felt a rush of cold air wash over me, nearly knocking me back. The laughter grew louder, an almost chaotic chorus surrounding me. And then everything went dark. I gasped and stumbled backward, but I had crossed into some other realm, energy swirling around me like claws. My mind raced. What was happening? Was this what the girl wanted? With no way to turn back, I braced myself for whatever was waiting. I forced my eyes open, but I was greeted by a thick shroud of darkness. My heart thundered in my chest as I fumbled with my hands, trying to understand my surroundings. It felt almost alive, buzzing with energy. I could hear muffled whispers, a cacophony of overlapping voices that sent chills crawling down my spine. "Help us," one voice pleaded, barely audible. "Find her," another murmured urgently. I swallowed hard, the hair on my arms standing on end. What had I stepped into? I felt panic rising, but I was rooted to the spot, caught in a tide I couldn't escape. I took a cautious step forward, hoping to regain my bearings. But as I moved, the whispers grew louder, swirling around me like a storm. I stumbled, tripping over something soft on the floor. My hands brushed against it, and I recoiled abruptly. It felt like fabric, something heavy, but I couldn't focus on it. My instincts screamed at me to run. I needed to get out of here. Just as I turned to flee, a flicker of light caught my attention from the corner of my eye. I hesitated. The light pulsed gently, beckoning me closer. Maybe it led to an exit. Heart racing, I stepped towards it. As I drew near, the light illuminated a small figure huddled in the shadows. It was a girl, her pale skin almost glowing against the darkness, and her wide eyes were filled with fear. She looked familiar, like the girl from the drawings. I could see her whispering something, her lips moving silently. I strained to hear her, but all I caught was a faint echo. Just then, the laughter returned, ringing in my ears. It wasn't just the girl's, there were other children's voices layered in. They filled the air with a sinister joy, creeping under my skin. I staggered back, a knot of dread tightening in my gut. "Don't leave," the girl's voice finally broke through. It was shaky and filled with urgency. "You have to find us." "Find you?" I echoed, confusion swirling around me. Suddenly, the room shifted again. The swirling energy pulled me forward, the laughter blending into a high-pitched sound. The girl vanished in an instant, leaving only her fading whisper. Light fades, the darkness closed in, and I felt panic welling up. The laughter crescendoed, my head spinning with the weight of it all. I turned and sprinted toward the flickering light, praying it led to safety. The world around me twisted and turned, like a distorted reflection in water. Then, just as I grasped at the light, I was thrown back into the room from where I had come. I landed on the cold hardwood floor, gasping for breath. What just happened? I muttered, looking around in disbelief. I had escaped, but I wasn't alone. The weight of eyes on me prickled my skin. I turned slowly, dread pooling in my stomach. Someone was behind me. I could feel it. Before I could react, a cold breath whooshed past my ear, and I realized I wasn't the only one drawn to the dark whispers. They were here, too. And I wasn't safe yet. I stood frozen, my heart pounding in my chest. I could barely breathe. Whoever or whatever was behind me made my skin crawl. I turned slowly, trying to summon courage, but my feet felt like lead. The shadows in the corners of the room shifted, and the whispers resumed. They seeped into my mind, tugging at my thoughts. "Find us," the girl's voice echoed faintly. Just as I opened my mouth to call out, a figure stepped forward from the shadows. My heart dropped. It was another child, a boy, his eyes wide and fearful, face smudged with dirt. His presence only heightened the turmoil inside me. Who were they? "Help us!" he rasped, reaching out with trembling hands. His voice was thick with desperation. "Where are we?" I managed to ask, trying to process how two children were suddenly in front of me. "Trapped," he replied, glancing nervously toward the darkness. "You shouldn't have come here." Transforming panic into instinct, I took a step back. "I need to get out." "What do you want from me?" "Find the door," he urged, his eyes darting like he expected something to pounce. "It's the only way." I scanned the room again. The walls, the floor, everything felt like it was closing in. "What door?" he frowned. "The door that leads back. But it's hidden. The shadows don't want you to see." The whispers intensified, surrounding me like an angry swarm. I could feel their energy lapping at my skin. Someone else was coming. My gut twisted. I had to act fast. "Where is it?" I demanded, a little louder than I intended. "Follow the light," he said urgently, his voice rising above the whispers. "That's what they fear." With no other option, I turned my gaze back toward the flickering light that had drawn me in the first place. It pulsed, like a heartbeat, calling me closer. "Please," the boy said, his voice cracking, "they'll come for you if you stay." I nodded, almost in agreement. I had to keep moving. As I turned toward the glowing light, I felt a rush of cool air sweep past me. The shadows shivered, and the laughter returned louder, more menacing. "Run!" the boy shouted, and I didn't need to be told twice. My feet moved, propelling me toward the light. The moment I reached it, the world around me shifted yet again, but now I was no longer alone. As the light grew, I glimpsed the outlines of more figures, their faces frozen in terror. They were children, too. "No, no, no!" I screamed, but the shadows lunged toward me, eager to drag me back into their suffocating embrace. I heard the boy's desperate call one last time, "You have to find us." Then everything went dark. I stumbled, my knees hitting the ground. What was happening? I felt the weight of the darkness pressing against me, trying to pull me under. I struggled against it, gasping for air, when suddenly, a blinding flare of light illuminated the space around me. And in that moment, I realized, I was not just fighting to escape, I was diving deeper into something I didn't fully comprehend. I could hear the desperate whispers of the lost children, but now, I understood their message. I had to find the door. And time was running out. I gasped as the light enveloped me, creating a stark contrast against the suffocating darkness. The shadows writhed around the edges, but they halted, as if the light had created a barrier. I looked around, trying to make sense of my surroundings. It felt like a different part of that endless space. The air was cooler here, almost refreshing. Before me stood more children, their wide eyes reflecting fear and confusion. I could see their dirt-streaked faces and ragged clothes. They were huddled together, glancing nervously at the flickering light. "Don't linger," a girl among them warned. Her voice trembled but held urgency. They'll come for you if you do. Who will? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, feeling the weight of dread settle in my stomach. The shadows, one of the boys said, clutching the others. They want to keep us here. They want to steal our light. I felt a rush of panic. They thought I was safe here, but I was still far from free. I need to find the door. It's the only way out, right? I tried to remember the boy's instructions. The hidden door, the girl said. You have to be brave. You can't let the shadows win. Their encouragement was mixed with the fear lingering in their eyes. What happens if I can't find it? I asked, my heart racing. Then we stay lost, she replied softly, a tear rolling down her cheek. That simple statement sent a shiver down my spine. I didn't want to imagine their fate becoming mine. With the flickering light as my guide, I began to move, scanning the walls for any clue. I stepped cautiously, the whispers still swirling. Names floated to the surface, familiar but distant, tugging at my memory. Then I spotted something. A faint shimmer along the edge of the light. It was a symbol, one that seemed to pulse. I approached it, feeling the warmth radiate against my skin. Is this the door? I asked, glancing back at the others. Touch it. The girl urged. Taking a deep breath, I reached for the symbol, my fingers trembling as they hovered just above it. As I made contact, pain shot through me, like electricity coursing through my veins. I pulled back, gasping. What was that? You have to commit. The boy shouted, fear escalating in his voice. It'll let you through, but it'll want to keep you. I hesitated, the shadows creeping closer, whispering threats that sent chills racing down my spine. Help me. You know what to do. I pleaded, my voice shaking with desperation. Find your courage. The girl called out, her urgency drowning in the growing darkness. Then it will open. I closed my eyes for a moment, feeling frustration, fear, and determination swirling inside me. I had to push through. I couldn't let the shadows win. Taking a deep breath, I pressed my palm against the shimmering symbol. This time, I didn't pull away. Pain surged through me, but I held on. With a loud crack, the world around me trembled. That's when I saw it, the door. But it was suddenly far out of reach, receding into the darkness, taunting me. Go! I heard the children shout, urgency in their voices as the whispers roared around us. I couldn't waste another second. I sprinted toward it, adrenaline flooding my limbs. But the shadows swirled like a storm, rushing to intercept me, eager to pull me back into their depths. I could feel them clawing at my mind. The door was slipping away. I had to reach it before it was lost to the darkness forever. I bolted, ignoring the whirlwind of whispers and shadows clawing at my thoughts. Each stride felt like I was breaking through a tide of thick, pressing air. The door flickered like a distant star, its edges glowing with a beckoning warmth. I pushed myself harder, willing my legs to move faster as the shadows lunged from every direction. The whispers shifted, intermingled with laughter that twisted into something menacing. Stay with us, they called, their voices a chorus of lost souls. An icy tendril wrapped around my ankle, trying to pull me back. I stumbled but regained my balance, heart racing, eyes fixed on that elusive door. Don't look back! Shouted the girl's voice, echoing among the shadows. I forced myself to focus, pushing forward. I was almost there, almost past what felt like an invisible barrier between light and dark. The crack of the door widened as I neared, aglow with promise. As I lunged for it, the shadows lunged back, wrapping tendrils of darkness around my wrist. The cold slithered up my arm, spreading dread and confusion. I twisted, pulling against the grip that held me. Let me go! I gasped, fighting against their hold. But the louder the laughter grew, the more paralyzed I felt. In that moment of chaos, the vision of the children I had seen flashed before my eyes, their fear, their plea for help. Their uncertainty weighed on me, but a flicker of resolve sparked in my heart. I had to make a choice. I wasn't just running for myself, I was running for them too. Fighting against the shadows, I clenched my teeth and yelled, "I will not stay. I'm not afraid of you." With sheer determination, I yanked my wrist free, breaking the tendril's hold. I surged forward, finally grasping the door handle, its warmth radiating against my palm. With one last burst of strength, I threw the door open. Light flooded the darkness, enveloping me in its embrace. I stumbled through the threshold, realizing seconds later that the darkness was no longer behind me. I was back in my living room, breathing hard and surprised to find everything seemingly normal, the walls stripped of their haunting whispers. But something wasn't right. A thick silence weighed heavily, pressing against my chest. I glanced outside. Night had fallen, and the street was shrouded in shadows once again. I felt a soft breeze wafting through the window, carrying faint echoes of laughter that lingered like a memory. Was it real? I whispered to myself, heart racing as I turned back to face the dollhouse sitting silently on the table, now somehow less menacing but still an enigma. Despite my escape, unease settled within me. I felt a sense of unresolved tension, an unanswered question clawing at the back of my mind: what had happened to the children? I glanced to the empty street, the moonlight casting long shadows that twisted unnaturally. The figure of the girl flashed briefly in my mind, her empty gaze and urgency lingering like a puzzle I couldn't complete. I moved closer to the window, straining to see if she stood outside, but there was nothing, just the quiet night. And as I stared into the darkness, insecurities pooled in my chest. I didn't know what awaited me next. Would I ever run again? Would I risk returning to another neighborhood, haunted by these uncertainties? I shook my head, pushing the thoughts aside. I was free, I reminded myself. But even as I whispered the words, a small part of me wondered if I truly was. I moved to lock the door behind me, the haunting memories mixing with a strange sense of lingering fear. I didn't dare turn back to that house with the dollhouse, nor did I want to consider if my world had shifted in ways I couldn't yet comprehend. I took a deep breath, attempting to calm my racing heart. But as I settled onto my couch, the shadows outside danced more vigorously, almost as if they were waiting for me to close my eyes. And even as weariness tugged at me, the echoes of laughter remained, reminding me of the unknown, leaving me wondering just what had been uncovered, and whether the real horror had really ended, or simply slipped back into the shadows.